way. And as it happens, uh oh, how do I make this stop? There we go. Actually, I'm up next. And, I thought if I were the budget officer, I could finagle a way that I wouldn't have to sit between Carrie, who has those wonderful pictures of 18-inch pipes going under Highway 99, and Dave Kraska, who, on the other hand, is going to show you really cool pictures of 66-inch pipes and all kinds of crazy things. We're always a little jealous as the finance guys because we don't have nice pictures to show. And I thought if I were the budget officer, I could skip myself position between Tom and Amy or something like that, so I wouldn't have to feel so bad, insignificant, jealous. But let me just say the work that the finance department, although it may not include large yellow metal contraptions that dig holes, it is nevertheless important. We obviously are responsible for issuing purchase orders and managing the procurement process. We manage the district's over $100 million portfolio, keep that safe and earning as much return as we can. We do payroll. We pay bills. We collect bills from our partners. We do financial reporting. We issue an annual financial report, comprehensive report for the district, as well as for the joint ventures. We do the annual reports for the Willamette Water Supply System, for the Willamette Intake Facilities Commission, and for the Willamette River Water Coalition. We do all that, the financial reporting. At the same time, we do the financial planning, the rates, and we run this budget process. So it keeps us all very busy. We have a total of 14 people within the department, organized within 2 divisions. As you look here, our appropriations for the year, 7.1 million. We're expecting to come in at 6.4 million, which is about $700,000 difference. A lot of that is in personnel services. We've been able to manage a vacancy that we're holding on to, and I want to hold on to it as long as I can. Our workloads are increasing, as I mentioned, with the Willamette Water Supply System, but we're trying to keep that vacancy in place. One of the other, and by the way, as Amy mentioned earlier this evening, we had very favorable benefit cost. Our benefit cost actually have our cost for insurance, unbelievably, actually went down. So we've saved money on insurance, and that's reflected in this total savings. But there is something I do want to point out to you that is a challenge, which is an arcane accounting requirement. Generally accepted accounting principles, we call it GAAP, requires that we track what's called a bad debt expense and have what's called an allowance for doubtful accounts. I don't want to get into the account. Well, actually, I do want to get into the accounting stuff, but you wouldn't want me to, as to why we're doing that and how it all works. But the bottom line is we have no choice. When we prepare our financial statements, we need to present them fairly, and it needs to reflect the fact that some of the money that we charge our customers may never become money in our bank account. So we need to reflect that. And the way that TVWD has historically done that is to show it as a bad debt expense. So we've increased our bad debt expense this year over $300,000 over budget, I'm expecting. And even with that expenditure, we're still maintaining a favorable variance overall in our spend. In addition to managing the finance department, actually finance actually oversees what the department called the non-department department. Now, when I first came to the district, we had what were called fund level expenses. And these were expenses that were charged at the fund level rather than at a department or division level. My OCD got the best of me, and so we changed this around. I like symmetry, and so every expenditure happens within a division within the department, and we have this new department called non-departmental department. By the way, this is pretty common with government agencies. Many government agencies have what's called non-departmental, where they charge these kinds of expenses. So what's in there? The biggest items in there are purchase water and pumping power, and our special payments. Special payments are these charges that we collect on behalf of others, or other charges that don't fit nicely in the appropriation category that's available under Oregon local budget law. So the largest element of that is funding our per site account. And you might remember 2 years ago, we appropriated $20 million to fund a per site account. As it's happened, we've decided not to fund the second part of that, an additional $10 million. We're going to wait and see what happens with the market and we're going to wait and see what happens with the district's unfunded actuarial liability within the PERS fund. So that's on hold. The other component of this are the rights-of-way fee that the cities charge our customers that live within their jurisdictions. We collect those fees from the customers and pass them on to the district, to the cities. It's not an operating expense; it's a special payment, and that's part of what's in the non-departmental department as well. No FTE in that department. Of course, the FTE are all within our operating departments. So during the biennium, we've had a lot going on. One of the key elements has been the debt program. To do that, we've adopted our financial management policies and have kept them up to date. We've had the board approve a financial plan that we've been using over the period, the 2-year period that we have here. We've adopted a bond ordinance that allowed us to enter into the WIFIA debt. We prepared our master declaration. We actually got 2 credit ratings, one from S&P and the other from Fitch. I'm happy to say they're both AA+ credit ratings, which is right in the sweet spot where TVWD ought to be. And we executed the WIFIA loan agreement. Tom talked about that as one of the first things that when he came on board was we were finalizing the WIFIA loan agreement. And that had an interest rate that I thought was fantastic of 2.39%. But we re-executed the WIFIA loan agreement on September 15th of 2020 and locked it in at 1.35%. So we're extremely happy with that outcome, and that'll pay dividends for the district well into the future. In addition, during the biennium, we set up all the accounting for the new joint ventures, the Willamette Water Supply Commission. That might sound like a simple task, but essentially we had to go out and bring forward all of those transactions that have happened since going back to 2014 and bring them into a new joint venture that is owned by the city of Hillsborough, the city of Beaverton, and the 12th Valley Water District. And we did a similar thing with the Willamette intake facilities, and we're doing all the accounting for those entities. And then COVID happened, and we stood up a financial response team where we were obviously looking at our account receivable aging reports, enhancing those reports, enhancing our collections monitoring, to talk about the things I just mentioned, the bad debt expense, and also revisions to the district's customer emergency assistance program. So like every other department, one of the key challenges we've had is adjusting to COVID-19. Revenues and collections have been a big part of this, and we're looking at revenues and we're watching our collections carefully so that we can report those accurately. And again, we want to maintain our good credit and everything else that we do there. But the other thing I want to mention is working remotely. So, the finance department is organized to segregate duties and maintain internal controls. And we asked everybody to leave here in quite a hurry last March, and yet our requirements to maintain segregation of duties and internal controls maintained. So we had to quickly pivot to new technologies, new approaches to doing business. And I say the staff was fantastic in pulling that off. So maintaining those internal controls in a distributed work environment is difficult, but very happy how that worked. The other thing is dealing with the retirements. And you might remember at the onset of the meeting, I talked about Todd Burton, our Chief Worry Officer and former Budget Officer's retirement, but we lost several key employees, like 6 within the finance department, all right before the biennium happened. We bring on all that new staff, and we're in the process of onboarding them, and then we get a pandemic, we send them home. So staffing was a key challenge, and those retirements, and getting the cross-training done and the business process documentation in place, and imparting to these new employees industry and firm-specific experience that they didn't come with. Some of them came from outside of government, all of them came from outside the water business, and we had to bring them on board and get them up to speed, all the while with this new staff trying to build that teamwork when we're working remotely. But couldn't be happier with the progress that we've made in front of those challenges. And frankly, I think it's made us stronger as a team as we've come together to deal with COVID-19 and the retirements. So goals for the upcoming biennium, we need to continue our reorganization of the finance department, moving from doing a lot of bookkeeping and doing more accounting. We need to address the increasing complexity that the Willamette Water Supply System, the Willamette Intake Facility System, the Customer Information System Andrew talked about, as well as our Beaverton IGA, and the increase in complexity that comes from the various statements that come out of the Government Accounting Standards Board that keep moving those goalposts for what I call the generally accepted accounting principles, the GAP stuff. We need to keep abreast of that. We need to build staff capacity after these retirements with the goal of increasing capacity as the complexity increases so that we can minimize the needs for additional staff. We need to address our financial challenges and continue to monitor and address those COVID-related revenue and collection problems. And in the coming biennium, we're going to undertake a cost of service rate study, and that's really got a couple of issues. One is to look at revenue stability, to make sure our fixed charges and our tiered rates are right, that the district's financial situation and risk is managed, but also to look at affordability and how we can assist customers who may have challenges paying for our water bills. And we need to manage our long-term debt. We'll continue with our WAFIA compliance, and we're going to prepare for our future revenue bond issues. So with that, I'll take any questions before I pass it on to Dave, who's going to embarrass me by having excellent pictures of really cool projects. Any questions?
I liked your break pictures, Paul. Nice job on that.
Well, those came from Andrea, so thank you, Andrea.
Okay.
If there are no pictures, our water supply program director. Oh, yes,
Paul, I
Marilyn.
have a comment. The one at the beginning of your presentation of all of us doing the tour, and it's raining, and we all look miserable. that was really funny.
That's because they won't let us put brandy in the coffee. That's my understanding. With that, I'm going to turn this over to our Water Supply Program Director, Dave Kraska. Dave, please take it away.
All right. Thank you, Paul. So as much as Paul says he is jealous of the photos that I'm able to share in my presentations, none of it would be able to happen if Paul weren't able to be successful in his job. So it would all come to a screeching halt, frankly. So we're all very codependent in our successes here. So anyways, we start off with this slide here, which really doesn't provide a lot of information as far as my department goes. It shows me as the program director and 14 direct reports. I've got some more better information in my coming slides. So let's go ahead and hit the next slide, please. So you've seen this version of slide in all the departments so far. In mine, this shows budget and staffing for the water supply program. Now keep in mind this $4.8 million budget for the current biennium is just for what Paul, I believe, would call materials and services. It's really just the staff, the TVWD staff engaged in the program. It has nothing to do with the capital improvements. The budget for that will be a presentation I'll make to you on April 8th. So anyway, so this is just our staffing budget, and we're showing a projected spend of about 3.7 million, or a difference of about 1.1 million, a savings of about 1.1 million. And largely that comes from, you can see the chart on the right there, where we have authorized 15 positions that we thought we were going to need 3 additional positions when we started the biennium. We found we were going to be able to survive without them for the continuous of this current biennium. So we only have the 12, so thus the savings in the budget. So next slide, please. So let's remind ourselves a little bit about what we're doing in the Willamette Water Supply Program. We are implementing the Willamette Water Supply System, so it's WWSS. And so we have a mission statement, and in paraphrasing it, it basically is to bring a seismically resilient Willamette River water supply to the district by 2026, or June of 2026. And this is what we're endeavoring to complete, starting with number 1 there, located at the south, down at the Willamette River. It's expanding and making resilient the intake there at the river and building a raw water pump station. Then moving up north there to number 2 is our new state-of-the-art water treatment plant that will be built along 124th Avenue on the eastern side of Sherwood. Number 3 there is all of the transmission line that from the river intake to the water treatment plant. It's a raw water transmission line. And everything north of the water treatment plant, it's finished water transmission line, and all told is about 32 miles of it. And then number 4 is 2 water storage tanks on Cooper Mountain, 2 15 million gallon tanks located there right off of Gravois Road. Next slide, please. So in completing the program, what most people think about is what's shown there at the top of the this graphic. And it shows design and construct the infrastructure, referencing the last slide that I just showed you. But there's a lot that goes into that, and beyond just designing and constructing the infrastructure. Working around clockwise here, there's also a lot of approvals that we need to obtain from the agencies, from various agencies, whether it's permitting agencies, resource agencies, governmental agencies. As you note from the graphic, a lot of our program occurs outside of our service area. And so there's a lot of folks that we have to work with that are impacted by our work, but are not going to receive benefit from it. Along with that, there's a lot of real estate that we have to acquire. All told, when we're done acquiring real estate, whether it's in fee of actual property or is as easements, probably about on the order of about 300 separate transactions, separate real estate acquisitions will be completed. There's a lot of risk. You heard our CEO, Tom Hickman, mention that. There's a lot of risks on all elements of the program, and we're working hard to identify them, anticipate them, and avoid them or mitigate and manage them to manage the cost exposure and schedule impacts from all those risks. A lot of spend on the program, so we have to control the finances and make sure that we're finishing on schedule. And all of this has to happen in concert. It all has to happen together, and that requires overall management and coordination. Next slide, please. So to get all this done, it takes a lot of people and a lot of organization. So this is our organization chart, such as it is in the program management office and answering to the WWSS board. So the WWSS board there is at the very top of the organization chart. We have three members there. There is a TVWD board member. Commissioner Jim Duggan is the TVWD representative on the WWSS board. From City of Hillsborough, it's Dave Judah, and from the City of Beaverton, it's Mayor Beatty, who is the Beaverton representative on the WWSS board. Then we answer to the management committee, which is made up of our CEO Tom Hickman, then Hillsborough Water Director Nikki Iverson, and then Beaverton Public Works Director Chad Lynn. And then we have these different elements of our program, starting with Office of the Director, that's my office. And then we have our 4 functional groups below there: permitting and public management, planning, design and construction, finance, controls and administration, and safety and security. Now, there's a lot of people on this organization chart, but only a handful of them, or 10 or so, actually are TVWD employees. So if you could click one more time. There we go. So all of the folks here circled in the dashed outlines, those are all TVWD staff. And you'll notice 2 things that I want to point out about this is you'll notice the TVWD staff kind of scattered around in this organization chart. That's done very intentionally. This is what we would call in program management a salt and pepper organization, where consultant staff is brought on board for the volume of work that needs to be accomplished. But agency staff is kind of peppered in around in that organization. And this really does a lot in terms of like making sure that frankly, our TVWD staff have opportunity to grow in their careers and learn and get the institutional knowledge to bring back to the district when the whole program is done. And you'll also notice that in leadership positions in each one of the functional groups and in the Office of the Director, we have agency staff. So we have owner representatives involved in all of the decision making and all the guidance and management of each one of the functional groups. So it's been a very effective organizational chart for us that's grown as the program's grown and will continue to evolve as the program evolves. Next slide, please. So what have we gotten done over the current biennium? So we've got kind of 3 groups of the key accomplishments that I want to present to you tonight: permitting and planning, real estate and design, the second group construction, third group intergovernmental commission. So under permitting, planning, real estate and design, we've obtained 214 permits and other approvals. As I mentioned to you, a lot of that is needed in order to accomplish all of our construction projects that are coming up. We've negotiated acquisition of 75 properties and easements over the last biennium. progressed 12 pipeline projects in design, and progressed the design of the raw water facilities, the water treatment plant, and the reservoir projects. Regarding construction, we've bid 4 major construction projects, and we've completed construction of 26,560 feet of pipeline. So we're making a lot of progress on our transmission main projects. Regarding our intergovernmental commissions, there are 3 commissions that we've been running through the program. One is the continued operations of the Willamette River Water Coalition, or otherwise known as WRWC. And that's a commission or coalition that started back in the 90s, and we've been managing its operation currently. We initiated operations, the Willamette Water Supply Commission, that started in July of 2019, and we've continued operations, the Willamette Intake Facilities Commission. They all sound alike, don't they? They all begin with W's, and they have a lot of words that go along with them. The Willamette Water Supply Commission, that's a commission that is TVWD, City of Hillsborough, and City of Beaverton. So that's really the big commission that owns the whole system. The Willamette Intake Facilities Commission is just the intake on the river. And so there are the 3 agencies that are part of the Willamette Water Supply Commission, and then 3 more agencies that are owners of the Willamette Intake Facilities Commission. And those additional 3 owners are the City of Tigard, City of Sherwood, and City of Wilsonville. Next slide, please. So as well, with what we got done over the last biennium, I want to show you just some examples of some of the construction that's currently underway that was enabled by the work that we got done during the current biennium, and will continue on as we continue into the next biennium. So starting off on the south end is a couple of construction photos of our raw water facilities project. Now this is down in Wilsonville. And this is what we're looking at here is an aerial view of what we call our upper site. And so this is if you would imagine just behind us in where we're taking this photo is the Willamette River. So this is basically looking north towards the upper site there. This is where we're going to be building our electrical facilities for our equipment down there, our standby generators, things of that nature. And then what we're also constructing in this is our trenchless excavation, our trenchless construction to get our pipeline across Arrowhead Creek there. That's more on the center right of this photo. You see the tall construction equipment on either side of the creek there, constructing the secant pile caissons there to affect that construction. Next slide, please. The other major work that's been occurring down in the raw water facility is what we call our deep soil mixing near the caisson. And so the square structure there that you see the roof of there, kind of in the center bottom of the photo, that is our raw water pump station, the existing raw water pump station. Below that is a 40-foot diameter, 80-foot deep caisson that goes straight down. And then there's a pipe that goes to the right out into the Willamette River that you see there behind the trees on the right-hand side of the photo here. And so what's occurring here, that large blue metal piece of equipment there is drilling and mixing the soil that's in that area to basically stabilize it, make it rigid in the case of a seismic event. Without this work, what we've determined during our geotechnical analysis is during a major seismic event, a lot of that soil would move towards the river and take the raw water facility with it. And so by doing this, we're going to stabilize that. So during the earthquake, our raw water facility or raw water pump station will remain in place. We'll be able to have a water supply shortly after a major seismic event. So this is some very important, challenging, messy work that we've had to accomplish, and we're almost done with it. It's taken a little bit longer than we anticipated, but we're wrapping up successful completion of this very messy, challenging, difficult work right now. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we're installing a lot of pipeline, and installing pipelines in Oregon means you're crossing a lot of waterways, a lot of creeks, and I'm getting a warning message that I've got 5 minutes left in my meeting. So sorry about that. I think we're going to go a little long tonight. And this is a quick example I wanted to show you of where we're crossing a river, actually a creek here. This is Arrowhead Creek again, or Coffee Lake Creek. Sorry, Arrowhead Creek was in the other photo. And this is where we're using what's called open trench excavation. So in this particular case, we're crossing this creek using open trench, and you don't just open trench through a creek like this. What you do is you dam up either side of the creek, you pipe through across your excavation, you pipe the creek across your excavation, and then you basically can trench in the dry and shore on either side, and then install your pipe in the dry. And in some cases where we can do it, it's a very cost-effective way for us to install a pipeline in very difficult settings such as this. Next slide. And when we're done, it looks like this. So we make a bit of a mess when we're crossing creeks such as that, and we're always very conscientious about restoring the condition. So under here, if you've got good eyesight, and you can see kind of in the center of the photo there, right on the berm, you see a light or a dark blue marker, and that just marks the location of where our pipe crosses the creek. And then everything, there we go, got a pointer there. Thank you, Paul. I assume that's Paul working the magic there. So that's the blue marker that marks where our pipeline is located, where it crosses the creek, and everything else is restoration, putting back to a natural setting there as far as before we came, what it was like. Next slide, please. And so in other cases, so that was an example of an open trench excavation, and here's an example of where we went trenchless across a, this is actually called an unnamed tributary right along Roy Rogers Road. So this is Roy Rogers Road just south of Shoals Ferry Road, so right in that very active construction zone, a lot of housing going up. And this shows you one of our secant pile caissons where we put in the caissons, then drilled straight down to install our pipeline trenchless. So basically tunneling straight under the tributary that's just north or just to the other side of that caisson. So again, just showing you an example of what that construction looks like. Next slide. And at the very bottom of that, so to the left of this photo is our pipeline crossing underneath that unnamed tributary. The larger diameter, dark colored piping there is our casing pipe. That's the first pipe that's installed underneath the tributary. And then our carrier pipe, the yellowish looking pipe, is installed inside that casing, so it's very protected. And then that piping has to transition up to get it out of the deep excavation. This excavation, I believe, was about 60 feet deep. We don't want to install all of our pipe that deep, so we have to transition up and then to a shallower excavation where our pipe has about 7 feet of cover. So that's more economical. But this is what the facility looks like at the very bottom before it transitions upward. Next slide, please. And so the current challenges, as you've heard from all the other department managers, COVID-19 was a big impact to us. Back a year ago, we had to rapidly change all of our operations to almost entirely remote, and it was really amazing just how quickly we were able to tell everyone to work from home. It's the safest way to be, and everyone moved accordingly. But along with that, we had to evolve all of our program practices to maintain teamwork and collaboration across all of our projects and functions. As I showed you in the organization chart, there's a lot of people that are working on the program, and we've been successful these past 5 or 6 years because we've been commonly housed in what we call the program management office, and it's been able to us engage with each other constantly throughout the day in hallways, in conference rooms, grab a dry erase board or whatever. It's been a very collaborative environment. And frankly, I don't think we would have been as successful in continuing this past year working remotely if we didn't have those past 5 years of working in such close proximity, getting to know each other, getting to understand how to work together and establishing our practices and doing so. So we also had to modify our delivery approach to respond to the financial constraints of our funding agencies. This COVID impacts has taken a hit, as you've heard, on TVWD, Hillsborough, and Beaverton. We've had to look at what have we had to modify on our program delivery in order to be responsive to that. And along with another impact from COVID-19, not only in the program office, but we also had to enforce social distancing and hygiene requirements to our construction projects. And so this has been challenging. Some contractors are more willing to comply with all of those requirements. Some were a little resistant, but we had to push because we had to make sure that our contractors that are out there doing our work for us they're representatives of us, and we want to make sure that they're representing us in the best light as they're out there doing work on our behalf. Some additional challenges that we're facing is this current year where it's our final push to complete all planning, all design, all permitting, all real estate acquisition. It's got to be done this year in order for us to get everything into construction and stay on track. And it's a bit of a stretch on the program resources, but we're holding it together. And finally, partner projects create public benefits, but they complicate project delivery. And what I mean by that is in certain areas, we're partnering, say, with Washington County, where Washington County is building a roadway, in the same place we're building a pipeline. We've been working with them for years now, trying to align our schedules, align our projects, so we do one project together. We impact the public one time. We incur benefits, cost benefits by economies of scale. But you release some control, you release it complicates everything, and so it's a big challenge now getting that done. We're going to get it through, but it does make it a little bit harder in getting those projects done. Next slide, please. Now, what about the next 2 years? What are we going to get done the next 2 years? And this, again, I'll get into in greater detail when I make the presentation on April 8th. But regarding permitting, planning, and real estate, again, the same kind of breakout as the prior slide. Finish all of our property acquisition. We've got about 100 properties still to acquire. And as Tom mentioned earlier in this presentation, earlier this evening, we've got 12 projects to bid. And that's a lot of projects to get out on the street in 1 year. Regarding construction, going to make progress on those 12 pipeline projects. We're also going to begin construction on all of our facilities. Our water treatment plant, we're going to finish the first phase of the raw water facilities, begin the second phase of the raw water facilities, and we're going to begin construction on our reservoirs. So by the next biennium, it's going to be very busy in terms of construction. Regarding our intergovernmental commissions, we're going to be transitioning the WRWC to TVWD. We're going to continue operations of the Willamette Intake Facilities Commission, including implementing a mission, vision, and values and goals for that commission and developing a source water protection plan. And then finally, with the Willamette Water Supply Commission, basically enable 2 more years of program progress to keep us on track. Next slide, please. And one last slide here, I think, to share with you. One of the things that we're proud of, we track very closely. Making sure that whatever we can do to support the local economy, we're tracking it and frankly advertising it. And as it shows here, 95% spend to date, so well over $200 million has been for local employees, goods, and services. And what do we mean by local? It's everything within 50 miles of the program activities. And so outside of that, regional means anything in Oregon and Washington, another 2%, so another 5 million or so there. And the rest is outside of Oregon and Washington, 3% is the balance there. But even some of that outside of Washington, that's companies outside of the area. Some of those companies have folks that work here locally. So even some of that spend does benefit the local economy. And so with that, I think I've got one last slide here for questions if there are any, and that's it. So I'd be glad to attempt to answer any questions you might have. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I've been trained that you give people 8 seconds to answer a question, and if you don't get one, then you move on. So I'm going to say we're good, and thank you for your time. And I am here to now introduce Tim, our TVWD IT Services Director. So please take it away, Tim.
Great, thank you, Dave. I have to echo Paul a little bit. I don't have any really cool pictures either, so we'll round this out with some basic bullets. Good evening, everybody. My name is Tim Boylan. I'm the IT Services Director for Tualatin Valley Water District, and my team is responsible for managing the life cycle of all the district's technologies. We also do things like wrangling the district's data, supporting our applications. We do business analysis and project management for our internal customers, which are all the departments. Can we move forward a slide, please? So this last year was interesting for us from a budgetary perspective. We're projecting to spend 4.7 out of our 5.6, which shows a difference of about 0.9. The delta is a little misleading. This is a combination of factors that are driving us to underspend this year. On one hand, we deferred a number of projects and initiatives, things related to refreshing technologies or addressing some of our technology roadmap items. But that was also offset because we spent more than expected on tools and technology to allow the district to work remotely during the pandemic. So in some cases, our license counts were higher. In some cases, our cellular phone bills were higher. On the flip side, we didn't spend as much on things like consulting or project activities or hardware refresh. So the net of that is we're planning to spend less than originally planned. The team includes 9 staff and myself, and those are evenly divided between geeks and nerds that are responsible for taking care of both internal customers as well as our technology infrastructure. Can we move ahead one, please? So, but before I jump into some of the bullets, one of the overarching strategies that I presented to the board way back in 2018 is that IT service delivery and our roadmap and our strategic plan is really based around 4 pillars of maturing IT service delivery and processes, simplifying the district's technology portfolio, making sure we have adequate resiliency in our systems and our data, and finally, increasing a focus on customer service. So under the banner of district resiliency, this last biennium was really focused on supporting projects and initiatives to make sure that we have capacity and resiliency in both things like our circuits. So we added redundant circuits. So a single circuit failure from one of our providers doesn't take down all communications. We also invested in things like our firewall and security systems to make sure that we're more protected from security threats. We supported some of our customers by doing things by migrating all the district's cellular services to AT&T's FirstNet platform, which is a federal program that allows public safety and public safety related services to come up more quickly and more resiliently in case of a natural disaster. Along with that, we also implemented a whole new radio infrastructure for handheld and truck mounted radios and communication around the district. And then we also completed a security assessment as part of America's Water Infrastructure Act. So can we move forward one? Some of the more fun stuff we did is we got a chance to implement a new help desk platform, and that help desk platform came with a lot of self-service capabilities for our internal customers. So we use that platform for collecting help desk requests and service requests when somebody needs support on something, but it's also a workflow engine. So we were able to open that up and give most of the departments an opportunity to set up their own self-service portals for requesting things like help from the communications department or help from our GIS mapping folks. So it's become not just an IT tool, but a district-wide tool. And then one of the big things we did over the last year is implementing a portfolio of field mobility projects. So field mobility is a broad term, but what we mean by that is we outfitted a whole variety of field staff with iPhones and tablets. We implemented more software and technology to allow them to do their work either individually or as teams that were socially distanced while they're in the field. And really the whole premise of the mobility project was to get more effective at working in the field and away from the office. Then continuing the theme of COVID support, back last March, we really pivoted over to help the district get to that remote work capability. So for folks who work in a cubicle or in the office, that was providing tools and technology like VPNs and additional software and additional communication tools so they could work from home. For folks that work out in the field, along with that mobility, it was getting them the devices they could use to work either on their own or from a socially distanced perspective. So can we move forward one? So some of the challenges that we're facing are related to projects and cybersecurity. So over the past year specifically, global cybersecurity incidents have just skyrocketed. You're hearing about things like phishing attacks or fraudulent emails. You're hearing about a lot of social engineering attacks. These things pop up in the press when it's things like people pretending to be an IRS agent or somebody from the government offering COVID support. So we're seeing both social engineering attacks on the rise against the district and in general. We're also seeing a lot of technology threats where people are trying to break into systems. This became really evident when you saw things like the hackers that took control of the SCADA system in Florida. You saw it in Tillamook when they were taken over by ransomware. So there's a lot of examples both in the industry and regionally where cybersecurity has become a big threat. So some of the challenges related to that are making sure that our employee base is really well educated and looking out for things like emails that aren't from who they say they're from, or being really careful about providing information on the phone. Then the flip side of that is the technology protection. That is a challenge for us to make sure that we're monitoring our circuits, our servers, our computers, making sure that we're really on top of protecting those from malicious activity, spyware, malware, things like that. And then the other big challenge that we're experiencing is with projects and priorities. And you've heard from several other folks tonight that IT really had to pivot away from some of the planned activities in order to help folks get ready and work remotely. What this did is it deferred some of our planned roadmap and refresh activities. And what that's going to do from a budgetary perspective is that when we need to revisit those in the next biennium, the 23 to 25 biennium, that'll drive an increase in our capital to pick up some of the projects that were pushed down the road a little bit. Okay, can we move forward one? And then coming up in the next biennium, what we're going to do is we're going to continue to push forward on those four domains that I spoke about. So from a IT process maturity and resiliency perspective, we have a number of IT standards that we're going to be implementing moving forward there. We also have communicated to the board in the past that we're going to become a cloud-first strategy organization, which means that when we have an opportunity, we're going to try and situate our applications and data with cloud services that give us the most flexibility to work from a variety of places, to share data as needed and appropriate, and to really make sure that we're leveraging some of the big corporate players to provide both protection as well as resiliency. And then again, as an ongoing topic, we're going to be increasing our cybersecurity monitoring and training. And by training, I mean we're going to be providing training not only to IT folks who try and protect the district, but also to all staff so they can recognize things like malicious activity or phishing attacks and things of that nature. And then on the simplification and customer service side, we're going to continue to target and retire some of our legacy technologies. Amy mentioned earlier on that we're running on a very old on-premise SharePoint, which is a document storage and collaboration platform that's now been phased out. We'll be moving some of those types of things to the cloud, and then basically setting us up for a future where we have a lot of flexibility. And then in support of some of the things Tom talked about around business intelligence, we're setting up data warehouses where we're collecting data from disparate systems. And then we're going to use that data to facilitate some discussions around what we need to make informed decisions, and then some of the tools and self-service processes that will allow departments and individual employees to take action without having to involve IT in complicated queries or reporting structures. And with that, that should be the last slide there. Happy to answer any questions. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I'm not hearing questions from the board. So, Paul, where are we in this
Yes,
process?
I'm about to wrap up here, President Bagnall. I just want to point out in this picture, you can see Bernice and I standing together. They call that the long and the short of it. In any event, I don't know. I thought I'd try to be funny.
And I was wearing heels.
So our next step, so let's wrap this thing up here. It is late. Now, I must admit that when Andrea and I put together the agenda for this meeting, we fully expected it to go until 8:30. So we sort of ripped you off by about 30 minutes. We're going to give you 15 of it back. So our next workshop, our first formal workshop, will be workshop number 2 on April the 8th. And we've organized this. So we're going to start with the toughest customers first. So we're going to be talking with the Engineering Operations Department, the Customer Service Department, and the Water Supply Program Department, because they have a lot of the larger, heavier lifting to do in terms of the requested budget. And then workshop number 3 on the 22nd, we'll finish up with the other departments, as well as pulling together the overall, what we call the all funds, but how the money's going to work through all the transactions. And then we're planning on the formal budget committee meeting where we actually do the deliberations and where we present the proposed budget to the budget committee on May 25th. So with that, if you have any questions, I can take them down now, and we can either ask them tonight to the group that's here, or we can come back at workshop number 2 and provide answers to those questions. Otherwise, if we have no questions, I'll turn it back over to President Bagnall, and President Bagnall, you can go ahead and adjourn or address any questions that may come up.
So I've learned something tonight. I need to give people 8 seconds to come up with a question. And I think you've had your 8. I think everybody's had 8 seconds. So thank you, everyone, for your patience. I, in particular, had some startup problems, but I appreciate y'all waiting for me, and I appreciate the staff's efforts tonight to get through a lot of material in an expeditious fashion. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.